Welcome back, Leominsterites. This is your state representative, Natalie Higgins, here for the October episode of Representing Leominster, and I am thrilled to be joined by one of my newest colleagues, Representative Margaret Scarsdale, who represents the 1st Middlesex District and is from Pepperell, but your district spans a whole lot more than Pepperell. So can you tell us what encompasses the 1st Middlesex District and a little bit about your background and why you wanted to become state representative representing your community?
Sure. First, thank you so much for having me on, and to the Leominster Cable Access TV for helping out with this. So I represent 6 communities: Ashby, Dunstable, 2 precincts in Groton, Lunenburg, 3 precincts there, Pepperell and Townsend. Lunenburg is new as of the 2020 re-precincting, and I lost 1 precinct in Groton. So kind of a new district, but it's been great getting out and getting to meet everyone and making inroads and collaborations. So how I got started in this work, it's kind of this very natural progression. I am a writer by trade, and for anyone over 40 watching this show, you probably will remember Digital Equipment Corporation. I worked for them as a lead writer on magazines and technical manuals. That's how I met my husband. When they were closing, I started to work for Air Town Hall. I ran a downtown revitalization program, which was very cool. My job was to bring in community development block grant funds and then work with business owners to get them to come into that program and revitalize their businesses. And this was in 2007 when Air pretty much looked like it was from the 70s, very dated. So that started.
It looks so much better. I didn't know that bit of yours. For folks who know, my parents are small business owners in Air, so I have actually gotten to watch that progress, and like really incredible.
Oh, it's been an amazing transformation. The businesses, they have the new parking garage. Like it's just such a vibrant little downtown. And in the course of doing that work, I realized that the business owners, there was an Air Business Alliance, but it wasn't really meeting or vibrant. So we got that re-energized, which it was just really amazing. My grant funding ran out, so I went back to school and got my certification to be a middle school teacher. I loved that, and then I ended up taking some time off with my kids. And I think that what really started the community work was when I saw a sandwich board saying that a pipeline was going to come through my community. And I went to the meeting, and that led to this partnership with towns all across the northern border to fight this pipeline because the gas wasn't coming to our area. They just wanted to use the land and ship it overseas and actually have the residents pay for the infrastructure. So it was not popular at all. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing was, even within the group, people never really felt like we could win that fight. And I always felt like sitting in those church basements and community centers, talking to all of these engaged people, I thought that there was no way we could lose. So I was very happy when that came true and we did not lose. Shortly after that, my hometown of Pepperell was slated for a soil reclamation project, which is they had proposed to bring in 4 million cubic yards of dirt that was reclaimed from other areas, old hospitals, old mill sites, but they needed to move that dirt, clean up that site. That's all well and good, right? But they put the dirt on trucks and they truck it somewhere else, usually poorer, browner communities. So I co-led a movement to stop that work, also successful, so very happy with that. And then I ran for the Pepperell Select Board. I actually, when I was being sworn in, I remember thinking that community work and that energy and that partnership, that vibrancy, that's all well and good on that side, but it won't translate to the municipal side. And nothing was further from the truth. People were ready to work together.
Absolutely.
They were ready to be engaged. And when that was up, I thought, wouldn't it be great to bring that to the district? I hope it will translate. And once again, the response has just, it's been amazing. So I love the work.
Yeah, I think we're already seeing it translate, and we're really excited to have you as a part of the delegation. You have learned that the North Central delegation is a tight-knit group, mostly because we have to be, but also because we like to be. And it's a cool regional delegation to be a part of, with a lot of newly elected folks. I'm one of the more senior people, and I've only been here for 7 years. So,
oh, exactly. There's so much to learn. That is such a big leap from municipal to the state level. And this delegation, you couldn't ask for a more committed, more dedicated group of people. Every time I reach out, as you know, with a question or a concern, everybody's always willing to help. And like you said, we're friends just because of the character of the people and their commitment to the work. So I am very lucky.
Yeah, and I think one of the coolest parts about being a state representative, right, we get to represent 45,000 people. I think I have a particularly special job because I get to represent Leominster and only Leominster, right? There are only a handful of us. You have a lot of communities to juggle that have similar needs and sometimes very different needs, or maybe needs that are in contention with one another. And so to be able to be enacting state level policy, but also kind of have your feet so much on the ground in your district is a really special place to be.
Yes. Well, I do have to say that very early on back in March, my team and I started talking about how can we bring the district together, the 6 towns. So we started holding information meetings with different groups like the veteran services officers and the food pantries and the council on aging. We have one coming up with the town clerks, and the one that is just really phenomenal is I'm very interested in community and economic development. I think that's such a foundational need if you're going to have a vibrant, sustainable community. So last week, we had all 6 towns, most of them with multiple representatives, elected leaders, planning board, conservation, historical commission, in a room. We filled the room talking about our regional vision for the area. I think a catalyst for that was the Groton Hills Music Center, which just opened. That's the Tanglewood of the East, as they're calling it. 1,100-seat concert hall, a lot of people coming in. Where are they all going to go? They can't all eat in Groton or visit Groton. So, and again, the timing is so right. Everybody is willing to be a partner, and we won't agree on everything, but what can we work on together? And it's always stronger when you're working in a partnership. So we're very excited about that.
And talking about kind of the strength of those regional voices, we're filming this on Monday, the day after the closure of the Leominster Birthing Center. And we've been so grateful to have you and your community joining the fight, because you represent a lot of the rural voices. We have Leominster and Fitchburg and Gardner really talking about the need for folks who don't have access to public transportation, but those needs are further magnified when you're out in a rural community like the ones that you represent, so close to the New Hampshire border.
Yes, and when you're talking about health care, a prime concern, and when you're talking about maternal health care, and just understanding the ramifications of losing a center in this area, and where are people going to go, and how long will it take them to get there, and will they forego prenatal visits because it's just not convenient to travel an hour one way to sit in an office and wait to be seen. So yes, and just the voices in that movement were so poignant, and we owe our nurses and the nursing staff just such a debt of gratitude for all that they do.
Yeah, and for folks who haven't been caught up on what's going on with the Leominster Birthing Center, we are not done fighting, right? Like, we've always been clear that we believed that this was a winnable fight, to what Rep. Scarsdale said about some of the fights that she's led. The easiest solution was for UMass Memorial Healthcare to maintain the birthing center at Leominster Hospital. That was the easiest solution from day one, for them to commit to providing essential services to their community hospitals in their network outside of Worcester. it became really clear that that wasn't going to be the case. And then we really pivoted to the Department of Public Health and Governor Healy to use the powers that they have to intervene, to slow down this process, to ensure that that birthing center can stay open so we can address the alleged challenges that UMass Memorial was bringing to us. And I think what was hard for us as community leaders is that reason for that closure changed over time. And thank you to the community who spoke out and really helped us problem solve. That's what we're really good at. We're a really resilient community. And we met the challenge with every kind of changing reason for why the hospital wanted to close the birthing center. We solved that problem.
Yes.
And that's why this week we are so heartbroken to see that center close. To our nurses who stayed until the very, very last moment of that center closing. They knew that they were going to be able to find jobs in other places. But they were committed to keeping that center open and to being there on that final day, hoping that the governor and her team would step in and force UMass to do what was right and what was just, which was keeping the birthing center here in the region. And now we regroup. We are not done. We built an incredibly strong coalition, and we get to work on figuring out how to bring birthing services back to Leominster and Fitchburg and sustain them in Gardner. If UMass Memorial does not want to sustain birthing services, that's okay. We'll find some community partners who want to sustain maternal health care services and birthing services. And looking at out-of-hospital birthing services, Massachusetts actually is really far behind when it comes to other states across the country in terms of midwifery care and doula services. And that's something that we really can look at to community partners, and how do we make sure that folks are getting accessible care in their communities when they need it.
Yes. Oh, I think everybody is still just as committed. I mean, it was such a shame, and I know there's a lot of sadness about that closure, but I think, as you said, people are already thinking, what's the next step? And they certainly have the partnership on the State House level with this delegation for that.
Yeah, and I think we've shown a light on the most common question we got from constituents was, how can we call a service essential and let it close? And so that's something that I think the North Central delegation is looking at. I have some ideas on some legislation I'd like to introduce that really says, if you deem it essential, it can't close for I don't know, 3 years, right? That seems like a reasonable, come up with other solutions. We have signs in our offices that say, we can solve all the problems, it's figure outable, right? Like the impossible takes a little longer, because we have to remind ourselves that, like, you don't give up. Like, you figure out those solutions, and that's why I'm so grateful for having partnerships in the state delegation and the legislators to figure out, how do we change these laws statewide to guarantee that there will be an intervention, but also how do we build resources within North Central Mass so that we have the services that we need right here at home.
Right, because that's just one of the magnets in attracting people to this area. They can find the services that they need, and a birthing center is definitely an essential service. I think a lot of us are just struck by how that could close when it has that label.
And just to add, Leominster has been dealing with a lot, and I want to take a moment for anyone impacted by the most recent flooding. If you don't know where to go for services, the flood relief is being run out of the Leominster Mayor's office. You can reach them at 978-534-7500. If you are still dealing with non-life-threatening but water conditions in your home and your property, please reach out to the Office of Emergency Management to connect with additional resources and tools. There's a lot of folks still working on the ground, volunteer organizations trying to get people back into their homes as quickly as possible, getting as much of the water damage out of folks' basements and lower levels. And unfortunately, we're going to have a lot of rebuilding. We're in the middle of collecting all of the information we need to apply for a federal disaster declaration, and that should be happening sometime after September 29th. Once we've given time for all of the families and community members and businesses to kind of collect that information about the damage that they sustained. But between the birthing center fight and kind of the way that the community came together to support each other and their neighbors in the midst of the flood, you are the environmental expert more than I am. We're seeing more and more of these impacts of climate change and these like once in a 500-year storm, but they're popping up in our community in North Central, in Attleboro, in North Andover, in Western Mass. And we are going to have to figure out, our communities aren't built to handle this kind of rain and this flooding. And a lot of communities are being impacted that never anticipated, right? Most of our neighbors don't have flood insurance because why would you need flood insurance in Leominster? Unless you were near a waterway, you really don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, just like the emotional impact of losing your basement or your home or your car, the financial impact of that as well. It's very hard for individuals to absorb that, and it's hard for towns to absorb that with the extra time for first responders and others who are on the ground to help people in need. So we have to figure that out.
Yeah, and our first responders were incredible in making sure there were no major injuries or fatalities. And honestly, for something as unexpected that came on so fast, Cassie and I were driving back from Worcester as it was happening, and we're just like, it's real dark. This rain's real heavy. Oh wait, the roads are starting to like flood. And we were with folks right between 5 and 6 o'clock trying to get home, and we know the amount of trauma that folks had who got caught in that rain unexpectedly and couldn't get home. We've all seen the pictures from so many communities, and for the folks who can't safely return home, trying to figure out how do we come together as a community to make folks as whole as humanly possible.
Exactly.
So as you will see, our job is unbelievably unpredictable, and we get to learn about a lot of different things that you don't necessarily anticipate. You've been in this role for closing in on a year. What have been some highlights? What have been some unexpected moments that you're taking away in your first couple of months in this role?
I think the enormity of the work on every front. I mean, some of it is more routine or mechanical, and then a lot of it has to do with heart and just wanting to do the best for your community. I was actually sworn in on a Wednesday, halfway through the day, and bill filing was 5 o'clock on that Friday, so my legislative aide and I had about 12 hours to file bills, learn the system and file bills. We got 9 through, so that was great, and those deal with just a variety of really pivotal needs in the community about supporting our rail trails, supporting our first responders, a study on climate change. I think the one that will be a highlight when we get it over the finish line is helping someone who has a 21E, which is a kind of an assurance from the state if you buy a property that had been previously contaminated, like a dry cleaner. You get a 21E and the state says you're all clear, you can live here, and years after the fact contamination came through, and now he's in a battle where the state is saying you actually have to clean that up. So I filed some legislation for that, working with the chairs of the committee that it's in, working with Senator Kennedy, working with a former representative. So just a partnership to try to make a difference in people's lives. But on the whole, I would say that that transition from municipal government to state level government and thinking, can it really be as purposeful and as powerful? Because it's so big, right? It's easy to get lost in details. And the answer is yes, it can be that purposeful and it can be that powerful.
Something that we ask most of our guests, if we have time, is kind of what tips or tricks do you have for someone who's looking to get into advocacy work, who cares about something at any level, whether it's the local level, the state level, or the federal level? What have you learned along the way that could help someone be a stronger advocate in their own community?
I would say make sure you're as informed as you can be about the topic. Go to meetings, ask questions, read about it, connect with other people on the local level in your town, even if it's if it's the Conservation Commission, the select board, your state rep, your state senator, even your congressional delegation. I remember for years thinking, oh, I couldn't possibly call my state rep and certainly not my congresswoman because they're on a different plane than I am. But the truth is that we work for the people we represent, and we are there to represent them. And I think certainly our doors are open. But I would say follow your heart and just go until you find something that works. Maybe you try something and it's not clicking, try something else.
One of the cool parts of being state rep is that I joke that we're the switchboard operators of government, right? Like a lot of folks don't know what level of government, but they know their state rep and they can reach out and say, I'm not sure who I should reach out to. And because it's one of the cool pieces, you talked about convening a lot of groups around kind of those bigger issues that often aren't asked to come together around a table to say, like, share your ideas, share your solutions. And that's a really special part of our job to say, we get to like figure out how to piece those resources together and how to build upon the good work that's already happening in little pockets in our community.
Yes, and to make it clear to show them that it is a partnership. I mean, if no one wanted to work with us in the district, I mean, it's very hard to be a switchboard operator, and I think sometimes maybe people think, oh, it's a stupid question or it's silly, and I always think, I'm so glad you reached out to us. So.
Yeah, we try to positively affirm those behaviors, right? A silver lining to the pandemic is a lot of folks reached out to us with unemployment issues because the system was just so broken, and we weren't able to intervene and get folks connected with their benefits as quickly as possible. But it also opened the door to, well, you helped with this. What about my health insurance, or what about my housing application, or what about my food assistance, or my heating assistance, my light heat, right? Like understanding kind of all of those different ways. And I remind folks that they need to reach out to us early and often if they're hitting a roadblock, because we need to know when those systems aren't working.
Yes.
Because if we don't get those calls, we might not necessarily know how broken the entry point is.
Exactly.
So anything else you want to share? Anything you're looking forward to heading into the fall? This is our time to shine environmentally, right? Like the fall, the apples. This is when I try to bring all of our colleagues out to North Central Mass to see what we're all about.
Yes, so definitely looking forward to apple picking and pumpkin picking, all the fall festivals that are going on right now, and really very eager to dive more into community work and try to get bills passed and just accomplish things that will help the Commonwealth as a whole.
Yeah, but we are so excited to get to continue to work with you and see the ways that our communities can come together. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on my show this month.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And for folks who are still having issues in questions, either with the birthing center, with the floods, with anything else that's coming up, whether it's state related or not, you can always give us a call. Our contact information will be on at the end, but our district number is 978-227-5278. And you are always welcome to shoot me an email at natalie.higgins@mahouse.gov. We still have those office hours on Monday evenings and Friday mornings by appointment. So if you are interested in meeting and you have something that you want us to be paying attention to, please take advantage of those. And thank you for tuning in.